Hello, everyone. This is Ed Breniger, and this is the Eddie Network Podcast. And my guest today is Olaf Hermans, and we share a lot in common, a lot of ideas, a lot of impressions about the world. And I think this is going to be a fascinating conversation. And I'm looking forward to being with you, Olaf. This is our first time actually talking. So this is another one of the first conversations that I'm having on the podcast. So welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live, and what you are doing, and whatever is you feel like is important for us to know.
Yeah, thank you. It's yeah, even though it's the first time, it was written in the stars somewhere. So I've been watching your work and admiring that, and actually longing to be one day have one hour of your time. So very special. I was born Dutch. I was raised in Belgium, where I lived with my siblings and my parents. I was educated University of Leuven in Master of Economics, Business Administration. And then I was educated in the United States, where I did my doctoral research at a later age. I'm now 57 years old, and but I started my PhD, I think, in 2009. So at age 43, it was a late mission in metacognitive sciences. So I'm a metacognitive scientist. That is not neurosciences, and it's also not cognitive sciences. So, but I will explain later what it is.
Where did you?
But I'm working.
Where did you do your PhD? Where?
At Pennsylvania State University in Health and Human Development. So that's and then there is a program in services management, and I did my doctorate. My dependent variable, and you always, what is your dependent variable? Was loyalty. And so loyalty is not just a value, but it's also a practice. And so yeah, we can talk about it later. So the theory of loyalty actually was not really well as it stood in 2009. But we come to that later. So I'm a scientist, but I'm also an entrepreneur. Since 2016, I run my own company. We develop mass conversational protocols. So that is like, how can you have conversations with many people individually at the same time, listening to them, but at the same time informing them about what the other said. And so basically institutionalizing gossip. And so it's kind of, it is known by people under like prisoner's dilemma when the FBI interrogates two suspects. And they say like, look, someone says, and say like, yeah, but your colleague already said this and this and this. And then we try to figure out who's telling the truth and so on and so on. So, but this is an elaboration that goes much, much, much further. It's when people have ideas about the progression of an organization, then you can tell them how they position relative to other people who have other ideas about that progression and so on. So very interesting. So the positioning of people in a population of opinions and so on. And so I help develop applications, software for that. So to scale that effort. So how you can have with very few facilitators, many conversations. And what is the role of technology in there? And interestingly enough, the role of technology will be huge is huge with artificial intelligence and so on. This all can be better facilitated. So I am in the theory and practice of co-leadership. I'm currently writing a book on co-leadership, but not defined as most people would define it, meaning how can different people have the role of a leader, or how do we collaborate and that everybody has a voice and so on. So teamwork and so on. That is generally how co-leadership is defined. I actually define co-leadership differently, but we can also talk about that. It is actually a process of people who see what is missing. And it can be anybody at any moment. And then we need to hold an operation, but operations don't want to be halted for someone who sees something in a discongruent way and so on. But so the book on co-leadership will come out this summer. And it kind of brings together a lot of elements, a new theory of motivation, new theory of loyalty and so on. So many new elements that stem from my work of the last 14 years.
Let me ask you a question. That's very provocative to me, because what I see and what I gathered from my research, over the last 40 years, is that we have, on the one hand, a perception of leadership that it's an elite function in an organization where most people are followers of the ones who are the leaders. And then you have
Yes.
this other sort of which is more in keeping with what I described as the leadership of the individual by taking personal initiative to create impact that makes a difference that matters. But what I heard you say is that if you take a team or you take a group of people, they're all going to see something different. And somehow in their coming together and interaction, their leadership will coalesce, if I may use that word, into something significant because each is contributing out of the context of the world that they imagine themselves living in.
I'm not that optimistic as soon as the organized is getting in between them. So the organized is basically what determines the cadence of an organization. What is organized needs to be ready by next week and so on. So there is and when you say like when you bring people together, but how often are people together? So the point is when people come together, then, we're going to be fine. Although the open space is also the unsafe space. And so when you bring people together, now I prefer to start with two. And then when time is ripe, bring in the third one, the fourth one, the fifth one, and the sixth one. What we now do today is when we want major change in organization, we put hundreds of people in a kickoff room, and that is the unsafe place. So the point is that everybody will applaud and break under the table. So you say, go, go, go above the table, and you hit the brakes under the table. That's what happens in the public space, and then leaders get the impression that everybody is on board and nobody's on board. So you need to be careful when you bring people together in how you do that, and also how that relates to the machine of the ongoing, the rush that says like, look, you can keep talking, but we need to have our job done by end of next week. So your idea is a great idea, but let's pick that up in 6 months from now. You say like 6 months from now, I would like to pick it up now. So like, what do you mean now? So you get like a distortion in speed. So the problem is that some things, and then you're all again also in Kahneman. So what goes slow and what goes fast in thinking and behavior. So we want the machine wants to produce by next week and has a cadence, and you cannot stop that thing. You cannot stop
So
that thing.
is there someone in that grouping, whether it's 2 or 50 or whatever it is, whose responsibility is the cadence, the movement, the
Yes.
facilitation of the process. So their role is to facilitate all these people beginning to work together in a way that actually advances them to achieve that goal in record time, or at least in time to meet the expectations of the company. Is there someone in that role?
Yes, there's a need for facilitation, and now in my eyes and my experience is that it can never be the leader. And so the leader by definition is an unsafe person, and that is not because it's a bad person, but the person has an agenda, has a desire, has convictions, has a vision. He's already preloaded with a lot of stuff, a leader. And what we need is someone who is complete personality agnostic, vision agnostic, who just sits in, like you now, in the moment, who's just there and so on. But leaders can't, because leaders have, so even if they're good leaders, they have strategy plans, boards, they cannot put that luggage aside. So there needs to be a facilitator who, on behalf of the leader, because the leader can of course hire that facilitator. And that facilitator can then go into the group with a loyalty mandate, because here it comes, the loyalty mandate, critical component of facilitation. It's not just how you facilitate and who you facilitate and what you facilitate, but with what legitimacy you come into the room. You say, like, I'm a facilitator. Yeah, okay, yeah, who cares? You're not part of us. Yes, because I come with a loyalty mandate from your boss.
So what is the difference then between the obligation to be loyal and the freedom to be loyal? How is that? How do those two versions of loyalty come together or don't come together?
You can only give loyalty. See, so I can give you my loyalty. I cannot ask it from you. I can only give it to you. So the thing is, when I come with a loyalty mandate, then you tell people, because that's what we do. Our company facilitates large groups of people moving forward. It's the psychology of forward movement, one that Kahneman did not have in his system 1, system 2 thinking. That is like
Right.
system 3 thinking and system 4 thinking. Forward movement of psychology. The interesting thing is when you ask 500 people in an organization, do you feel that we're moving forward? Everybody can answer that question in seconds. And so it means that that is something that's a psychological mechanism. It's not just a system 2 conscious, something constructed argument why we're moving forward. People have a sense of moving forward. See, and it's in our, okay. But either way, so when you come in to ask people like, do you feel that we're moving forward? Because that's the only legitimate question that you can ask, and not like, are things going well? Because going well is already an evaluation and is already like, perspective bound and so on. So the only thing you can ask a group of people is, do you feel that we are moving forward? And then you can do that with a loyalty mandate, saying that the boss of their boss, a very important concept, the boss of the boss, not their boss, but the boss of the boss is concerned about their well-being and whether people have the right position in that forward movement of the whole. And there comes my scientific background. I'm in relationships, but not in relationships between people, but in the relationship between people and the whole moving forward. And so we have, like, you can have a relationship with brands, like that's an intangible, but there's another intangible that is way more important for leaders. That is the relationship between people and the whole moving forward. And that's a double intangible, because first, what is the whole? And second, once we see the whole, yeah, but is it moving forward or backward? That's a double intangible. That's a squared intangible. And it is that relationship that determines whether people will make an extraordinary effort to the whole and make it move forward. So if they see it moving forward, they will contribute to moving it forward.
So what happens when the C-suite perceives that we're moving forward, but the lowest echelon of the company does not see that?
Very unlikely.
What happens then? How do you address the fact that your employees do not see you moving forward? In fact, they don't trust you, and they are disgruntled, and they're not doing activist things where they're destroying things or they're short-circuiting things, but they are clearly unhappy with what is perceived as this moving forward. How do we deal with that?
Yes. And the situation is even worse, because the thing that leadership generally sees moving forward is their own leadership, or going well is their own leadership. And there 70% of the people disagree. 97%, it was last week, it was in the news in Germany, 97% of all leaders believe they are good leaders, and 69% of all people believe that their leader is not a good leader. So yeah, well, there it already goes. And then we haven't spoken about the whole, we just have spoken about your leadership. Your leadership. But it's interesting, it's also the other way around, because many leaders say this is not moving forward in times of change and transition and restructuring and cost cutting and so on. They say this is not moving, and the people say, like, I don't see your problem. See, because where I work, I have everything under control. So both are holding things against each other, and it's a very difficult conversation. Yes,
there's a gap there, a gap of perception that has to be bridged, and
yes.
Am I wrong in assuming that the person who gets squeezed in the middle is the general manager, or the manager of
the middle?
The person in the middle, the general manager, the middle manager is the one who gets squeezed and is the one who really has to play both sides against each other, or bring the two sides together in some way.
And it never works. So the middle never gets that together, because when they talk to the people below, they will say to the middle, look, who do you represent? And so what's your legitimacy? I see that you're a good manager, but you don't see the whole. You only see your division, your function, whatever your part it is. And I see the whole going wrong. And people see the whole. What do you mean the whole? What do you mean? What do you mean? The whole is bigger than the organization. That can be environmental interests. It can be people interests, whatever. The whole. That's a lot. The whole is more than just the organization.
That's right.
And the interesting thing is, it has been proven that organizations make profit and achieve their objectives, and people feel that they're moving backward. Many people in society today feel that we're going backward, and many other people say, like, look, have you seen medical science, how well we do these days? We keep people alive, see progression and so on, progression. People think like progression thing, we are moving backward. And people don't understand, like, how can you see that we are moving backward while everything is moving forward? Then what is it? What is it that triggers people's sense that we're moving backward? So it's really cool. It's in the subconscious, because objectively, there often is no argument to state that we are moving backward. It's like, where does it come from? And so we're tapping the collective subconscious. We need to get into the underbelly of thoughts. So because people often themselves cannot put their finger on it. Yeah, I know we make profit. I know customer satisfaction is high. I know employee satisfaction is high, and still I feel that everything moves backward. Where does it come from?
I've been
It's fascinating.
I've been dealing with a situation with, I'm not going to name names, but I'm dealing with a local, well, it's a national company, but it has a local location here where I purchased equipment from them that required installation in my house, this house that I just purchased. And it's been a nightmare because you have the retail store, and then you have the fulfillment office, and the fulfillment people are the persons who are going to be the most intimately connected to the customer, but they are not allowed to schedule visits to the customer, and only the people at the retail store can schedule their visits, and so the communication between there is really poor. It's really poor, and here we are on the 28th of March, and I purchased this piece of equipment on the 4th of February, and we're still not finished installing it. It's working, but it's not installed to completed. And so it was interesting, and I complained to the company. I complained to the retail sales staff, who all know me now because I talk with them every week over the last 2 months, and they finally put me in touch with the day manager for the store, and it was remarkable how he had no interest in taking care of me as a customer. He had something else going on. He told me that I couldn't return the product because I did not purchase it with their credit card. And I only had 48 hours with which I could return it, but it didn't arrive until later. It wasn't, it's all this. I'm seeing what you're talking about played out in real life in my own experience with a retail store and the fulfillment office, and having to bring in electricians and plumbers, and it's been a nightmare. And so what I see you talking about is a real thing.
Yeah, you can put a number of labels on it, and I would like to introduce one that you may have heard, but maybe people haven't heard, but that is the one of over-organization, of course. We all know you can over-organize to a point that the people who execute think like, look, I see what I need to do, but I can't do it. See, and then we say like, yeah, there's silo thinking and so on, but no, very often that's silo organization. It's not silo thinking, it's silo organization. These people are not even allowed to have a mandate. But you could also call it under-humanization. Under-humanization means that and because we always talk about humanization and be kind and blah, 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 and be loving and so on. Well, if love is all you need and love is all you get, and we will take all the rest from you. But okay, that's a cynical me on love. But no, the point is not humanization, it's under-humanization. So the point is that we don't use all the talents of people in the moment in a particular spot in situ to deal with it. and that is what organizations. So they humanize. I mean, they're all kind. All managers are kind these days and empathetic and authentic. But they underhumanize in the sense that they don't use people's talents. See, so and underhumanization is the problem of our world, not humanization.
And this is exactly
Most
the
people
conversation I'm having with the clerks at the retail store and the fulfillment people who come to work on the stuff. They both recognize exactly what you just said.
yeah. It's
So
very cool.
it doesn't take a PhD to learn this. It helps, though,
Again,
be able to describe it to the people that actually need to learn this, which are the people who are actually
yes.
responsible in these organizations. What we once called leaders, but they're not. But they really are just managers. They're not leaders. They're just managers, and they're managing their reputation within a very small little circle of people.
Yes. But I'm not pessimistic because the solution is what we do. And that is bifurcating the organization. And so bifurcating means like with trains, you just put them on another track and you make sure that two tracks can run independently, interdependently. There is a lot of independence. So that's dependently. What managers always want is that everything is systemic dependently. And I want to talk about independently. So a priori, we just do what we want, and you are interdependently in the sense that we take information from one another, so that there is some form of synchronization and consolidation. But then, so you take the people and you say, like, look, but how would you have liked to help Mr. Brenniger in doing his installation? So you start talking to the guy who's doing it. So, like, in the ideal world, what would you have done? And so, like, well, the specialist, the expert, the craftsman, the craftsmanship, good old terms, of course, would say, like, well, in his case, it's clear that this needs to be done. I would make a call to that person and up, and then we would kind of, align our works, and then it would be done in no time. And so then the question is, like, yeah, but how are we gonna convince your managers to do it this way the next time? So, or now, or even now. So now. And then they say, like, well, I say, like, well, why don't you experiment with it? And now it comes, because in the meta-relational, meta-conversational world, I will explain, it's all a lot of meta, not in the way that Zuckerberg defines it, but meta in the terms of, like, transcending and overlooking and overriding particular things, and saying, like, well, it looks like the right idea, but we're going to do it differently anyway, and better. So the point is, we need to make simulations and experimentation. And now it comes, we need goodwill as a currency, because if the craftsman really believes that it should be different, then he should do some experiments outside his hours, because during his hours, he is owned by his manager. So he needs to kind of say, like, look, and I need to ask him, like, what do you need from me? What do you need from me? So, like, well, I need other people who are high on goodwill so that we can do an assembly and some accomplice, and then, we can make something happen. So, like, look, I talk to everybody, and because we talk to everybody, conversation just like you do. But we do it in synchronicity. So the moment that somewhere a problem arises, and we try to leverage goodwill in different places in the ecosystem to gather in other places in the ecosystem, and then realize something magnificent. And then we go back to management to say, like, well, we would like to propose to do things differently. And by the way, we already did it. So, and here's and then there is the non-incircumventable proof. That the craftsmanship way of working is the better way of working. And that is actually what managers would love to see, of course, is that people don't come just with their opinion, but with the proof that the alternative works better.
So in your experience, and you've had a wide experience of both in academia and in the world of entrepreneurship, to what extent do you think that the people who are in the training and education business for business understand these concepts that we're talking about? I'm really talking about business schools. Did business schools get this?
it's well, I don't want to sound negative. I mean, there's probably a lot of good things and inspiration and cases and so on. There's probably a lot of good. I was in a business school myself, and so I don't want to hear sound like, the guy who's just going to tell the whole world that they're wrong and so what. But it is true that we need to go through a number of exercises where we say, like, look, we have invented programs of empowerment, team collaboration, culture, experiential programs for employees and for customers. We have engagement programs, we have leadership programs, and someone need to ask the question, and what if we would substitute all that, or at least enhance all that, with one-on-one conversation with everybody in real time, synchronized from the top till the cleaner. The word conversation, you and I are conversationalists,
Yes.
but in business schools, conversation is not, they stick with communication. It's communication. We can communicate. Mr. Hermans, we can communicate. And communication is, we send it, and then people can do with it what they want. They can leave us if they didn't like it. If you don't like it, you can leave. And if they want to react, they have to react through all the layers of organizations before it comes back to the person who communicated. So the question really is, when do we embrace conversation as an enhancement mechanism, or maybe even as a substitute for organization? So conversation as organization, because what we do, for instance,
What do you mean
the
by
added
that?
value of what we do.
Would you describe what you mean by
Well,
that?
Yeah, well, I do.
Organization. Would you describe that?
I do conversation facilitation jobs for groups of people who don't have an organization. So when idealists come together and say, like, look, we, as many people that nowadays come together, a lot of virtual rounds of coffee, people coming together, great ideas and so on. But they would love to do something together, but there is no organization. There is no body. There's no body in corporation. The corpus, there is no corpus. And what I say is, like, no problem. If you guys have goodwill, time, willingness to talk, vision, ideas, takes perspectives, then I'm willing to have a conversation with all of you the moment that you want it, as a complete neutral. I'm not your leader. I'm not a leader. So I'm just a facilitator of conversation between all of you. And when someone says something, then I will generalize it, contextualize it, anonymize it if needed, and I will pass it on, publish it to all the others, who then can see what they feel that the gap is in the whole moving forward, and so that they can fill that gap and so on. So there is no need for organization. When there is an organization, as in many cases, we have an organization, we have a structure, then we can enhance and improve the efficiency and effectiveness of that, and make sure that with the leaders we have, that we can manage a bigger operation. So the result of our work often is a saving in 20-25% in back office cost, like supervision cost. If the people know better what to do and are able to do what they have to do and so on, well, then you need less supervision. There will be more exploratory behavior, and there will even be more compliance if people see that the compliance is the right way to go. So why would we then not go compliant? But the point is that so all this is possible with an organization, but it's also interesting to facilitate people who don't have an organization, like very often, for instance, startups. Startups, they start. Everybody does everything in the organization. So the question is, how long can you keep your entrepreneurial vibe and growth and mechanics by conversation, mass conversation, structured, scalable, relationally aligning conversation, so that you can avoid having to over-organize yourself? And that is a fascinating question. So how long can we postpone the moment of having to organize ourselves?
Well, it makes me wonder if the ideal is actually to take a large organization, break it up into smaller ones, and allow that conversational strategy to be utilized in the new structure. Because
I strongly, I need to friendly and strongly oppose here. So
you oppose that,
because that's. I'm sorry that maybe I want to finish your point.
no.
Maybe
I'm just
finish
asking the question. I mean, because
no. So the answer is no. The answer is no. The answer is no. So the answer is we're not going to split up the organization, and that's what happens today. So what organizations are doing, like in what is it, like the famous case of Hire? What is it in the Chinese case? 70,000 people, and we split it up in 3,000 units of 25 people, I don't know, 30 people. And then we have autonomous business units, autonomous, and we have the autonomous business unit leader, which is in the middle, which is the worst, because that person says like, I will do everything to report profit because then corporate will leave me alone. And when she or he says, I will do everything, I can tell you, he or she means everything, including terrorizing everything that is inside her autonomous cell or his cell. So that's the problem on the inside. So when you create autonomous units, the only thing they have to do is report profit. Now, well, they will, but at what cost? The second thing is that if you have 3,000 autonomous units, then you have 2,999 public relation efforts to do. So you had a problem of 70,000 people, but now you have a problem of 2,999 public relations efforts because suddenly all the rest of the organization is the outside. And that is not a better alternative. I think it's even worse. What we found is you can keep your 70,000 together. You just have to talk to 70,000 people at the same time and ask them all the time where each of them wants to be in the whole moving forward. You need to define the relevant definition because a whole can be a group of 200 inside the 70,000. But for some people who are extremely ambitious, talented, smart, the whole is 70,000. A few people in that organization see the whole as, I think we can be successful with 70,000 people. If those people, you will make their life harder when you split the organization in 3,000 autonomous business units. It's better than to have one chief CEO on 70,000 and all the others having a good conversation with them, but not creating the middle layer of, yeah, but these are autonomous units. We don't need that. That is an added layer of complexity that we don't need, the autonomous unit. But now what I say is highly controversial. So this basically this dismisses for many people. Many people now will stop listening to this interview because this is the end for this is where it kind of stops for many. Like no, that was a given of the last 20 years. Yeah, but what happened with the last 20 years? That's exactly the moment in time that most people started to feel that organizations are going backward, and that is exactly that. So. No, I'm very critical.
Breaking up into these autonomous units is not the same as creating a network of autonomous units. They're all very much autonomous, and they do not necessarily value how they are connected to one another like they were before. I mean, it's sort of like, I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you because I've sat through some seminars on this philosophy of Rentenai, or however it is pronounced. I think it's a Dutch word, but I've sat through that and I found it fascinating because it was a representation of how a highly centralized organization could implement decentralizing their structure, which has a lot of appeal to me because but what you're describing is that there is also this the lack of shall we say accountability to the whole erupts in that kind of situation, and it was, and maybe that's where I really would like this, because what I've seen, I've had groups that I've talked to talk with me about what they see, what they describe as corruption, and when I delved into that and looked at that, I said, what I found was I felt like that corruption is simply the severing of authority, the authority to run the business, from accountability for running the business, and that they're separate, and as a result, there's some inherent problems that come when there's no accountability for those who are in authority, or for those who are responsible to the people in authority. And it becomes very, very chaotic. And I feel like that's where we are. And it seems, let me just take one more step with this, that what you're talking about, this one-to-one conversation for all the people in the company, really seems to make sense to me.
Our brains are wired to want to see the whole moving forward. And we are not satisfied in our need There's nobody coming to us defining the whole in a way that can satisfy us. So because they're all too small. They're all too small. All the people who come to us are too small. People are big, all people are leaders. All people are visionary. Some people can only look 24 hours ahead, knowing what they're going to do. Other people can look 6 months ahead. Other people can look 6 years ahead, but we're all visionary because we must to survive. And that's what our brain is wired to look forward. And Kahneman said, of course, that we're not really good at it. Yeah, but that's by lack of information and by lack of friends. If you have better friends and better information, we're all like perfectly accurate. And that's why I rage against the theory of bias. I rage against it because that's always by lack of information and by lack of friends. If you have more friends, better information, then everybody is pinpoint accurate in his decisions. So don't do it to me. But the point is,
it's not necessarily that
people want to
friends are going to be that kind of helpful to you. It's not necessary. It's just having a lot of friends doesn't mean that you have good access to good information.
No. But there comes your role of facilitator. So because you don't need to have friends, you have same with it's same with trust. Like leaders are trying to create trust and so on. Say like no. Leaders were created so that we can move forward without trust. And so we try to today. Things are being like redefined in ways that are not correct.
Right.
The point is when you have 1,000 people in an organization that cannot hang out and don't have beers together, and there's still a leader and says like, guys, we're going to move forward together. A good leader. And you don't have to trust each other as long as you trust me. So the leadership is the trust. And now the leaders start to create trust among people and say, yeah, sorry, but then, I'm very aggressive. Say like, no, guys, that was your role. You don't need to create trust. You are the trust. So you are what binds people, and people just want to be themselves and want to talk to someone who represents the whole moving forward, and someone who does not tell them that they need to blend in with all the other colors that they're not familiar with. I don't want diversity. I want to be myself, and I want to have a leader who's gray, not colorful, but gray, and who only represents ongoingness and perpetuation. Just give me ongoingness and perpetuation. And that's it. And that's what you need. And that you, as a leader, hang out with all the colors, that's fine. But that's not my... See, people, craftsmen, people performing well, don't want to go into that together thing. That together thing... I'm not a Yuval Harari fan. I'm not a tribe person. A tribe, an organization is an emergent property of a relationship, of relationships. You and I have ideas together. Okay, let's fetch an organization to it and let's find some technologies, but not the other way around. Not say like, yeah, we all have a need for tribe. No. There's something like social loafing. We all know that when you put people together, then they will fly from their responsibilities, but they will also fly from their dreams. So the point in the together, everything is being, everything is being cut. The harvest field is, So the point is, we want individuals, strong individuals who can rely on a leadership, and that leadership needs to embody the trust with all the others. I don't need to know all the others, but you're gonna tell me what the relational positions of all the others are. So I want you as a news channel. For the leader is not like, oh, what do you need from me? No. I can solve my own problems. All people can solve their own problems. Don't be empathetic with me. Allow me to be inverse empathetic with you. What is it that you as a leader see for the whole? And where do you see that everybody is? And then I can tell you what gap I can fill for you. But we're now in a world of, leaders need to create trust and empathetic. No. They are trust and they need to be inverse empathetic. They need to ask everybody, what is your contribution to the whole? And I will tell you where everybody is in the whole so that you can pick a place.
So
that's inverse empathy. Listen to my problem as a leader.
With the time we have left, let's talk about conversation specifically and what it looks like. I mean, you have a passion for it as well as I do, and
yes.
So let's talk about how we talk to one another. What's that look like? Just when one-to-one. I mean, this is where you start with a one-to-one. What is it that we need to do when we're one-to-one, like you and I are talking today? What is it that we need to do?
So before, like, let's say, the talking itself is like the mandate. So whenever you talk to anybody in an organization, knowing that everybody's a visionary and everybody's competent in what they're doing, that is your best assumption. The question is, what information do they need from me? So what do I need to tell them about the whole, because they just have a very limited vision. So a good conversation is 50-50. I need to share with them where the rest is. And that's 50% of the time. If people say like, look, Mr. Hermans, I have nothing to say about the whole moving forward, then I say like, well, I have something to say to you, because this is what all the others are doing. These are the ventures that are the expeditions that are being put up, and maybe you can find yourself a place in those. So even if you don't have anything to say, and you just want to do your work 9 to 5, that's fine. But I have a few things, and some people might need your goodwill. So it's also a marketplace. It's a marketplace of goodwill, and the leader kind of exemplifies that. But when you start a conversation, it's really interesting. Let's say a little background. So we were just talking about the autonomous unit. So the theory of motivation today says that anything, organization or people are motivated when they feel autonomous, competent, and connected. And those are the 3 pillars of motivation. I believe that theory is incomplete, because what really motivates people, or what also motivates people, is admiring loyalty. So admiration, that's not the same as connectedness. Admiring loyalty. Access to goodwill, so meaning that I can bring from anywhere in the ecosystem goodwill that you weren't even connected with. So I just bring it to you. And then the whole moving forward. So even if you are not moving forward, seeing that the whole moves forward will still bring solace and so on. So the theory of motivation is also just like the system 1, system 2 thinking is really highly incomplete. It's not wrong, it's just incomplete. So motivation is a bigger thing, but now it comes. The biggest motivation is actually the energy that comes from an encounter between ownership, craftsmanship, and parenthood. And that is mind-blowing. That is not even published, but we know it from our conversations with people. So if you bring into a conversation a success owner, that is someone who says like, look, I just want all of us here, to have a good future and be somewhere else in a year from now where we all be happier and so on. Someone with a vision, but also with a responsibility, and saying like, look, I will do anything. So someone who is existentially and essentially connected to that goal. That can be a founder or someone, who says like, look, I'm not on the job market. I'm just going for this single thing. Success owner. The craftsman can be anyone who can do something. A Swiss watchmaker. It can be anyone who can do something spectacular. And parenthood is people, who is loyal to the people and who wants to take them as they are, including their potential. So I take you as you are, including your potential, which means that I don't take you as you are. That's the interesting paradox of love. I accept you as you are, including your potential, meaning that I don't accept you as you are because you can be a better person. So that's the vicious circle. But either way, if you bring those 3 people together, then you always have an entrepreneurial mindset. So we're going to do something. We're going to change something. So someone warrants the overall success, someone cares for the people, and someone is able to do something. And that encounter we try to bring into our conversation. So before we have discussed what we're going to discuss, it is who is in the conversation. So bring the right people in the conversation. And generally, it starts with bilateral, but then I need to identify, are you a success owner? Are you a craftsman person or a parenthood person? Okay, good. And then I have other ones, and then I match them and I bring them in triangles, and then I know that it works. And then they have like self-rolling motivate, they track and trade, they kind of self-pulling motivation to realize anything. And then the only thing I need to do is bring the triangle in touch with other forces that can leverage whatever idea that these 3 are having together. And then I'm just like a broker of goodwill. So first I'm a matchmaker and then I'm a broker. So, but that is more, you see, we say like, let's talk conversation. Yeah, but configurations of who's in the conversation. First one-on-one, then 1-on-3, and then 1-on-multiple. Always with a growing de-anonymization. In the beginning, everything anonymous. When I say to people, I say like, look, I have someone who wants to do something. And then people ask like, who is it? I say like, I can't say that. But what is wrong with this idea? So let's stick to the arguments of people, not to the social media, of course. We first look to the person who says it. And we never look to the argument of people. We say, well, we look at reputation and at, but you need, of course, to work on the substance of things and what people really have to add. And it's only then when people say like, yeah, I want to get to know the person behind that idea, that we say like, look, I will ask the other person if he also wants to know the person who wants to learn to know him, and so on. So it's a very careful process of unveiling of identities. We also believe that in this world, identity formation happens at the end, not in the beginning. I don't need to know who you are. None of the conversations start with personal introduction. None of them. We instantly start with, hey, are moving things forward at your end, and how do you things evolving? And through that process, I will learn who people are, you know, how broad or narrow they think, what their passions are, and so on. See, so they define themselves while they're talking about the whole moving forward. I learn to know who they are, but they also feel that they become other people because they can contribute to other people's work and so on. And they, at the end of the day, they will say like, I'm now a better person. So because I do more than I thought I was capable of doing, and I do more than I thought this morning when I looked into the mirror and I was telling to myself who I was, who I am. So identity lies at the end of the road, not early in the morning. I don't need to know who you are. I don't need your profile. So we just need to talk about the whole moving forward and how you position in that. And in that process, I will learn to know you, and you will learn to know others and yourself. But the conversation itself is of course is interesting. It is structured in blocks. So we talk about the rush. It's interesting, the stuff that's going on out there, because the room where we are with people is always a calm room and they have a little bit of time. Interesting for you, the average time we spend in conversation in large organizations lies between 20 and 30 minutes per population member per month. So the time of conversation is very restricted, and we don't need more because it's actually more useful to abort and plan for another meeting than make it very lengthy. Because when it's lengthy, I need to do a lot of follow-ups and then we have chaos. So it's better to pick 1 or 2 or 3 topics, and that I then follow up and come back to you in 2 weeks. And then I tell you what I achieved with other people with your ideas. So it's actually coffee break. Coffee break is what we already know from like generations ago, that the coffee corner, you know, we need 15 minutes of your time. Have very personal conversations, but never emotional. Even people in complete distress and burnout. We talk to people also when they're at home in burnout. And what appears is that people are most grateful that we continue talking about work while they're in burnout, because people care. People care. The worst thing for someone in burnout is to be isolated at home. And what do we do today? Take some rest 6 months. You never come back. You never come back. Because
Right.
the train continues. See, so you need to keep people on the train, even if they're burned out, but in a non-pressuring and non-stressful way. But all this is controversial. All the coaches will say, take a break from work. And I say, no, don't. Put them back on the horse. Put them back on the horse. That's what you and I were educated with. Get back on the horse. And get back on the horse means keep them informed about the organization moving forward. And these people from home come with the best ideas. Burnout people always give the best ideas for the organization. Yeah, why? Because they know exactly why they burned out. You know, so listen to your burned out people. No, what we do is we give them, well-being, wellness treatment. No, ask them for strategic advice. We don't do that. Yeah? But okay, so you start talking about the rush. You start talking about the dynamics, the progressions, the powers, the influences, the contributions, the expeditions. Where's the excellence? Where's the non-excellence, and so on? That is what I call the dynamics. The rush simply is about the organization and the roles, the successes and the failures, and so on. That is basically the basics, is a foundation. The dynamics. Then we talk about the extraordinary. Where's the feedback? Where's the culture? Where's the cohesion? Where's the motivation? Where's the learning? Where's all the things that can make things very, very special? The extraordinary. Then we talk about the ongoing conversation. Do we look at things today differently than we did 2 weeks ago? So do we need to reframe our past? So the reframing, but also what are the new observations? What did you see new this week? And how did you interpret that? But also, who is migrating from where to where in an organization? So what are the new elements, but it also keeps the conversation going. So what makes for ongoing conversation is, of course, like what did you see or what is new since the last time we spoke? So we have a conversation. Next time we will have a conversation about the topics that we elaborated from today. But we will also ask, like, hey, Olaf, what happened in the last 2-3 weeks that we haven't met? So it's basically the catch up, and that's also part of this. Then we talk about the liftables, and the liftables is what, in your opinion, can go much better than it's going today. So what are the liftables? That can be either processes, can be organized things or activities, programs, evaluation processes, whatever, but also events, ideas. Sometimes there's an idea in an organization. People say, like, well, I think there's a much better idea. Okay, tell me what idea should be transformed in a better idea. And then the last point of discussion is loyalty. So there are 6 types of loyalty. That's really cool. There is the transactional loyalty, that is satisfaction and intention. There's the lowest level of loyalty. In the transactional world, that's the highest level of loyalty. In the relational world, it's the lowest. Satisfaction and intention is like, I'm happy with my coffee, I'm gonna have another one. You can say that you're loyal to the coffee brand. No, I'm just gonna have another coffee. But are you loyal to the brand? No, that's something else. But then you have, of course, the loyalty in terms of state of relationship, like we are on speaking terms. That is something else than being happy with a coffee and buying it again. So you have loyalty that comes from a relationship, a speaking relationship, but you can also have loyalty that comes from a loyalty proposition. Whatever you do, I have your back, and we will still be together in 6 months from now. I don't give a shit what you do. So what you do wrong, that is a green light, a ticket to take risk. So because he said, like, look, whatever you do, that's a blank check. Whatever you do, you and I will be together. I'm in sports and sports coaching, and I learned that you can give, like, people, that you can lift them out of their hinges in a good way. If you give them your unconditional loyalty, give unconditional loyalty. And that means that you say, like, you're good, we are perfect, and what you just did is not good. And then actually they will always take that positively. What we today say, like, I give you feedback that is not really good. But before you say to someone that something is not good, you need to tell them that they are good and that your relationship is perfect. And nobody ever puts that in front of it. There's no leader who says that. And we always say, like, I want to give you feedback. What they're never saying is that you and I will, that they and you will still be together in 6 months from now. Because if that is not the case, why would I work on the feedback if I don't have certainty about our relationship? Why would I start working on and investing in improving things? If you don't give me that certainty that we will be together forever, best friend forever, 6 months. But okay, so we talk different levels of loyalty, and I asked them, like, can I have your goodwill? What type of goodwill do I have from you? Is it from your satisfaction? Is it from a state of relationship, or is it from this? Or do you have an unconditional loyalty statement to the organization, and then I can call you day and night? But I need to know what type of goodwill people are, because wherever I find good ideas in an organization, I will have to leverage that with the goodwill of other people in the organization. So I need to make a goodwill inventory. And that's what I literally discuss. So what is the type and degree of loyalty to your organization, to the people,
So
with everybody?
it sounds to me, and that this is a transformational. It's a transition that is at the highest level of quality, because what you're really doing is you are transforming the organization from a machine into a community, where the value of the conversation, of the loyalty, of the interaction is higher than the role of the person in the machine. And that's the motivation to serve the organization. I've seen this. I think this is, you're quantifying and qualifying something which exists already. It just has not been systematized for application, but it happens automatically in places. I mean, I've told this story before, and I'll tell it again because it's so important. I did a webinar series for a large international company that was in trouble. And I had one section of the company that I was doing these webinars for. And I went to their headquarters, this department's headquarters, to meet with the people that had hired me. And one of them was took me around and showed me their building. You know, this is where I work. Here's my office, and here's where so and so works. And he was telling me this in a relational way. Then he takes me into the executive office, and this executive assistant to one of the senior VPs stands up in a very formal way, very attractive, but very formally dressed, and as if, why are you intruding into my space? And he introduces me to her, and I say to her, I want you to know that a company is not defined by its tragedies or its executives. It's defined by, this is the phrase that I have been using, a persistent residual culture of values that persists because it resides in the relationships of the people. And when I said that to her, this intensity.
This armor.
Sat down in her chair as if finally someone understands that we love this company, and it's our love for the company which keeps us here. She had been there for 28 years.
28 years. 48 years, you had said, yeah.
So
by the way, in the context, I listened to that podcast. You said that, and you said leadership comes and goes, and people hold it together.
That's right. But you see, what I see you doing, this is why I really like what you're doing, is that you're giving validation and you're giving permission for people to talk to one another and to build a company around this notion of loyalty to one another, because we have a love for the company. And the love is a kind of an awkward word to use, but if we don't love the place that we work, we shouldn't be there. I mean, I love what I'm doing. I would do this.
It is the simple statement. The simple statements about loyalty are that the highest loyalty is when people come the first day to work, and then you can only lose it from there. So we all were super excited when we went to work our first day, in a particular position, them trusting us. We believed that we would be allowed to change the organization, and then of course 6 months later, a year later, you learn that your role was kind of that they didn't hire you for your ideas, but for your role. But if you then want to keep up your loyalty to what the organization represents, or maybe your other people who work there, then what we often see is that the people are loyal to the customers, but tell to the customers, like, you have to help me to stay loyal to the company, because it's not easy. And then the customers actually help the employees. And the customers have an amazingly important role. So the most employees feel that they work with the customers against the management, and not with the management for the customers. But that is like amazing. And that's what I hear in my conversations. I hear it every day.
I talk about that everywhere I go. I'm totally with you on that. Because I love the workers. I love the workers. And
of course, the workers of this.
I mean, they're the unsung leaders and heroes of organizations, and this elevates their role in a way that I think people can understand.
But see, when the workers come together with ownership, and so the point today, management is workers, middle management, and leadership. But the fourth layer is ownership. And ownership, of course, we see capital ownership, but there's many other forms of ownership, emotional ownership, or whatever. There's so much quality ownership and so on. Ownership is always above leadership, always, whether it's capital ownership or other forms of ownership. And so when Enzo Ferrari, who died in 1988, he went to the craftsman, Materazzi, in 1987. And he said to Materazzi, he's the owner, and of course the leaders have already sent the owner in retirement and go and play golf and so on. And the owner from time to time comes and see in the showroom, and he says to the engineer, and says, like, do you also see all these, all these BMWs in red color with an Italian flag on? And do you also see that our leadership has grown our organization to the point that all our cars look like BMWs, but we only paint them red with an M? And he says, like, can you one more time make me a real Ferrari? And of course, Materazzi, emotional and so on. The interview with Materazzi, who by the way died last year, is on YouTube. And He said, yeah, of course, Enzo Ferrari, you know, I will make your car. And normally they make a car in 2.5 years to develop and all so on. And the car was ready in 6 months. And it was the F40, and it's the best Ferrari ever made.
Right.
And it was made in the junction. In the junction, it's not craftsman. It's not. Don't love just the people. Love the triangle of craftsman, ownership, and parenthood. Put those three together, and they
I like
explode. It's like it's atomic. It's an atomic energy that releases. What we do today is we appreciate craftsmanship, but we don't put it together with ownership and parenthood, because then craftsmanship goes bananas. Craftsmanship will instantly on the spot on Sundays. Boundaries. What do you mean boundaries? There is no more boundaries, because they see when you combine craftsmanship and parenthood and ownership, it's magic. It's magic.
Okay.
Everything comes from.
So
Yeah, there we
here
are.
we are today. Where are you taking it? What's your strategy for taking this set of ideas forward? Because I know you don't feel like you're at the end of something. You're at the beginning of
Yeah.
a stage. I mean, you said that to me privately. So what is it that you want to do next with this? And how
Yes.
all of us who are listening to you help you with that? Because
Oh,
I mean,
what an offer.
I'm particularly just saying, how can we enter into conversation with you where that helps you?
Yeah, thank you so much. And what can I do? It's one. It's as convinced as I may appear about things, and I'm very competent in what I say, and there's a lot that I believe was not right in Kahneman theory and the theories of motivation and the theories of loyalty. There's so much wrong in what we currently accept as, because these are all defined from transactional or social transactional angles, and not from holistic human movement perspectives and so on. So I'm very competent, but I'm very humble. And it said, like, look, I put about 7 years in scientific research from 2009 to 2016. The last 7 years, I developed protocols and ways and software trying to accommodate this conversation, not just with the workers, also with the autonomous business unit manager and the leader. And the leader who says, like, Olaf, please tell me what's going on downstairs, because I only get reports, but I don't know what's happening downstairs. And we can help that. We help that person too. And the middle manager, we help, and we say, like, look, I understand that you're an autonomous business unit manager, but I also know that you want to do the good for the whole and so on, but allow us to be a neutral parallel leader, someone who converses with your people without the pressure that you put on them, and so on and so on. So we have a value proposition to the management and the leaders as well in the conversation through meta conversation. But of course, also to the people by putting them in triangles of parenthood, ownership, and craftsmanship. Every person in the organization needs to put in his or her triangle with the right people, and then they will spark. They will fly. It's simply a matter of bringing these chemical elements together, and poof, and we have explosion. And now you do it at scale, and then we have a chain reaction. So what we have is this, but to be honest, we now only have the software like since 1 year or so. We're alpha testing it, beta testing, but now we need all the different use cases. And these can be big organizations, small organizations, non-organizations, just assemblies of people having a dream, but not wanting to found an incorporated, whatever, limited company or so, whatever, or a PLC, what is it? So we're looking for use cases of groups between 50 and 150 people, where we, in a humble fashion, are allowed to open this safe, and because it is safe, it is perfectly privacy, I would say, respecting, in the sense that there are very severe laws on whatever information you get from people. I need to protect it. So the information we gather from employees is not owned by the company. It remains owned by the people themselves. So the company only gets aggregated reports about what we're doing with their people, but instantly remark that these people do better jobs, are less burned out, are more motivated. So they always tell me, like, how people show up on the work floor, and say, like, I don't even talk about it, because I only talk with them about the whole moving forward. But they tell me that they show up in better shape next Monday. I say, like, well, that's a good side effect. And that, of course, is what they want. But so we need the trust that organizations tell us, like, okay, try this with my people for 6 months. the cost lies around $40 to $50 per employee per month. So that is not, I sometimes make this statement, like if you can spend $500,000 on your 100 best leaders, on your 100 leaders, why can't you spend $100,000 on your 500 people? See, so what we do is organizations always spend in their leadership, but not in the leadership of the people. They invest in the leadership of their leaders, but you should invest in the leadership of your people. And you unleash that by having this structured conversation. And we just know that all the alpha and beta tests we've done so far, ever bigger groups, ever longer periods, is that people come out very, very well. And of course, every coach will say that in front of your camera, but I can just show it in a very humble fashion that people, it's hard to imagine that you say like, yeah, but these are blue collar workers, Mr. Hermans. They don't know what the whole and forward movement is. It's like, yeah, but their brains know because they were born. It's
They
there.
do.
I don't talk a language of a psychologist. I just know that there is a system in there that burns them out if nobody talks about the whole with them. I know that, but of course it's not an explicit need of people. So like, nobody in the street will say, I need to have a conversation about the whole. But if you give it to them, all the big inventors gave people an iPhone. Ford gave people a car while they wanted a faster horse. You need to give people something else than they ask for, and then just see that that is what they wanted, and that is what makes them feel happy. So
Well,
it would be fantastic if in the audience there are people who say like, Mr. Hermans, 50 to 150 people as a test. A priori, we can do it with 5,000 as well, but I just don't have the facilitators at this moment to kind of, but we could scale it up eventually. So we could either work in a large organization and do small
well,
proof of concept.
it'll be interesting to watch how this unfolds over the next few years. Because there is an incentive for leaders of organizations to do this, is that they have to find a way to keep their talented people, because they are now they're more valuable than they've ever been, and they will go wherever they need to go. And so if you want to keep your talent, then you need to do things which are very similar to what Olaf is talking about. So,
well, I think there's like what organizations are already doing is provide them with a motivating environment. So the conditioning is okay. I think most organizations try to get the right workplace, the hybrid thing, the community, and so on, the platforms, the community. But the individual contract where you connect people to the whole from the first day, while they are still loyal, on the first day they're still loyal, instantly connect them to that and see that as a separate conversation, which interdependently entwines and interwaves with the teamwork, the collaborations, the innovations that they're already doing. And so organizations are doing already so much, and then you think like, yeah, must we also have this additional channel of conversation? The point is, in 6 months, it replaces 5 of the existing platforms of communication. So it will kick out a lot of the programs that are now in place that are basically an over-organization of communication. But so, yeah, this is it. So sorry that I'm so passionate about this, but
my last question for you is this where you find hope for the future?
I'm only one of 8 billion, and I've put all my aces on this. So this is my contribution to the salvaging of organization and the recovery of people.
Great answer. Great answer. I'm totally with you. And for that reason, I do have hope. I mean, and you're not the only reason. There's so many people that have been here on this podcast who have told me of things that 2 years ago I was not so hopeful, but now I am really hopeful. And we just need to support people who are doing things like you're doing. And
no. It's but it's very emotional because it's a long journey. It's not an idea; it's a long journey. You know that.
It is a journey.
But it's also that it's also so hard because when in the last hour I've thrown more new words, metacognition, mass relational facilitation, and people would think like, look, I hang up and I move to the next thing that is easier to understand. But we need to give space and stage time to the things that have been well thought through. It is complex and it's not unmanageable, but it is complex. Okay, cool. But we need to sit through. We're all smart people, but we need to stop listening to the what seems to be the obvious and self-evident truth, which may only drive us further away from
Right.
what we end up.
Well, we'll
Yeah,
certainly put all your contact information, anything you want, in the show notes so people can find you and maybe work with you.
And I promise to report back to you whatever comes from it. I'm very open and transparent when it comes to the results. So all the tests that we're now doing. So I see for the next time, I'm not in a business of making a lot of money. I just wanted to run. The investment was priceless. So, you cannot return the investment anyway.
We'll return sometime in the future for an update.
Yeah, I just want to see the light coming from it, and then one will light another case and so on. And I would be honored to report on your platform what the results of mass conversation. And you're doing your best as a single individual doing the conversations with many interesting people. Can you just imagine that? I would love to merge that with the conversation with all the normal people who don't get the chance to be on your podcast and who are equally fascinating leaders in their own right.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day about I was describing what I do with the podcast, and I we were in a bar watching a basketball game, and I turned around and said, "You see everybody in this room? Every one of them has something to say that's worth listening to. Every one of them. Every one of them could be on my podcast, and every one of them would be fantastic. And they don't know that yet because no one has ever asked them. But that's the world we live in. People have qualities about them that no one is recognizing, and we need to be recognizing those qualities. And I think through conversation, this is a way we do that, because we're affirming that you are someone. I'm going to be loyal to you as well as to my company, because I find something in you that is worth affirming, validating, and supporting and championing.
Yes.
And that's what ends up happening.
But the lesson from it, because there I think many are at that point, but then it comes that conversation needs to be synchronized, at scale, in situ, safe, structured. So there are a number of characteristics of that conversation in order to consolidate it and to make sure that the conversation transforms into goodwill action. So, and there's a number of transformational elements. And that is what took, but I'm open. That's like the code, that's cracking the code of mass relational conversation. And then actually you will see that all these people who have this fantastic voice actually walk out together as a whole through the door. And that is too, because having great leadership visions, because that is the loneliness that we have today. A lot of people seeing the light, but they're sitting alone at home with it, or writing a book about it, and then with no readers.
I like that phrase.
Yes.
The code of mass relational conversation.
That's it.
I really like that. Thank you, Olaf. And thank you all for watching.
Thank you very much.
Please sign up and hit the like button, and please leave a comment, leave a question, because it really does matter to us. And I send it on to my guests, and it's really it's very valuable for you to be in communication with us. So I thank you. And Olaf, I'll talk with you again real soon.
Thank you so much.
And we thank you all, and we'll see you next time here on the Eddie Network podcast. Bye-bye.